it up. Oh wow, it's magic.
It is.
Oh,
It's magic.
all right,
No.
all right. So we are back with another prayer, another lesson on prayer.
When did we decide that we're back? Maybe I wanted to be front, you know?
Well, you don't always get to pick. That's what we learned in the other lesson about Moses' prayer, is you don't get to tell God what you want to be. If he wants you to be back, you're back.
I wasn't talking to God, I was talking to you.
Well, I didn't decide it. We are back. I mean, I can't change that. So here we are. And we are in Exodus. We have looked at the prayer in Exodus 4, where Moses is,
Complaining,
well,
making excuses.
excusing. This is the one where he's
yeah,
complaining.
this is the one he's
So,
complaining.
as if, making excuses wasn't bad enough, now he's going to start complaining, which I don't know. I'm a little torn about this one because, you know, we have a lot of it in the Bible where people are complaining to God in prayer,
I feel
and yet
for
it feels
him here.
awkward.
I feel for him here,
Yeah.
though.
Well, I know. I mean,
Well, here,
we've all been there.
let's read the prayer so
But it
we
is
know what we're
awkward to
talking
think about complaining to God. But all right, so
Exodus chapter 5, verses 22 through 23. Then Moses turned to the Lord and said, O Lord, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you ever send me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all.
right, yeah, because you remember God sent him saying, hey, it's time. I'm going to deliver my people.
Yep.
And so Moses goes back,
and he's expecting, God to deliver the people.
I'm gonna go in there and tell Pharaoh, let my people go, and he's gonna let the people go because God is gonna do this.
And then he goes in there, and Pharaoh's like, "You're crazy."
Yeah, well, Pharaoh, I mean, he's beyond that. He's like, oh, wait, they got too much time on their hand. If they're complaining about this, they're not working hard enough.
Yep.
And so he puts more work on them, makes it harder for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, then Moses goes to the people, and they're kind of like, thanks a lot, Moses. I mean, it was bad enough we were slaves, but now you've made our work even harder. With friends like you, who needs enemies?
Who needs the Pharaoh?
Right. I mean, with a rescuer like you coming along, and so Moses is frustrated.
Understandably so.
I mean, we would all be frustrated in that circumstance.
We would.
And it's understandable. The people are frustrated too because he's like, we're crying out to the Lord for deliverance. This Moses fellow comes along and makes our life worse. That's not going the way it's supposed to. And so we understand the frustration, but at the same time, it's just it always and there are a lot of the Psalms are this way too.
Oh yeah, where David's just like, God, what on earth are you doing?
Yeah, I mean,
and we read that and we're just like, whoa, who are you?
Who do you think you're talking
you are
to? I mean,
talk to God like that?
And yet, it seems like the people who were closest to God, and we talked about openness and honesty
and boldness,
in prayer and boldness.
The Moses and David being able to come forward and just be like, God, why on earth have you done this to me, to these people? What are you doing? How long are you going to abandon us?
And you promised you were going to let your people go and rescue them. And since I came over here, nothing good's happening. It's just getting worse.
Yeah.
How is this helping? What are you doing? And certainly, a lot of these prayers and the circumstances, and when we read through these situations, one of the things we realize is God is working. Hindsight's 20/20, they say. Looking back at it, we can say, "Oh, well, God was doing what needed to be done, but it wasn't working out the way they thought it should at the time." And that's where we are a lot of times. We're in the middle of a situation, and maybe it's a bad situation. It's not what we wanted. It's not what we thought should have happened. Maybe we lost a job, maybe we lost a loved one, maybe we had another problem in our life, maybe we lost a house or a car or
Maybe you were trying to deliver an entire country of slaves, but then the king of the entire nation was like, no, you're not allowed to do that.
I, I that seems oddly specific. I don't think any of the people we're talking to are in that situation.
Uh,
I was trying to think of things that were more
you never know. Harriet
specific.
Tubman's still alive, isn't she?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay, okay.
I mean, that was
Never
like
mind,
over a
never mind.
hundred years
Okay.
ago. I'm pretty sure she's dead now.
You know, they called her Moses too.
That they did, and then there's that Grandma Moses that's a painter, but I don't know what she has to do with Moses.
I don't, I don't know her.
Mm,
I don't think I've ever heard of her.
It's okay. But bad things happen to us,
Hmm.
and we pray for deliverance, and sometimes things keep being seemingly bad,
Yep.
and we don't know why, and we sometimes are scared. We don't want to question God's wisdom, but we're also frustrated, and there are times where maybe we do need to let some of that out to God,
Yep.
like Moses and David did,
But
and like Jesus on the cross.
but the
My
one
God, my
thing,
God, why have you
oh yeah,
forsaken me?
yeah.
Quoting one of the Psalms, Psalm
But the
22.
one thing that you can always be sure of is that just because you don't know God's plan doesn't mean that God doesn't have a plan. Life is not meaningless. Our God is not an author of chaos. He has purpose in everything that happens, and He knows everything that happens before it's going to happen. So if something happens, you know that it happens because that is what He wanted. You may not know why it's what he wanted, and that's a good question to ask him is, God, why
Well,
are you doing this?
okay. No, I think we have to be careful. I mean, to say that it happened because that's what God
Well,
wanted. I mean, God doesn't want people to commit sin and murder people and rob
that's
people and stuff like
that's
that.
true.
I mean, but
I
he,
wasn't thinking along those
yeah,
lines.
but he works through those things anyway.
Yes, yes, that was what I was
He
trying to
can
say.
bring good, and that's one thing. Sometimes people will quote Romans 8:28, and they misunderstand it, where he says God works things together for good for those that love the Lord. And sometimes people think that means, well, God makes everything good happen to us. Well, that's not what it says. It says he works all those things together to wind up being for your good. It doesn't mean they were good things. We never want to
Also,
give the idea that it's good if your loved one dies, or it's good if
yes.
you were robbed or in a bad car wreck or got
Mhm.
some horrible disease. That, oh, that's a good thing. No, but God can still work through that. I know one woman who is a Christian today. She was a nurse in a hospital. She is a Christian today because a Christian man was in the hospital, and she was his nurse, and she found out about the Lord because of him. And now, was it good that he was in the hospital? No. I mean, he didn't want to be in the hospital, but because he was in the hospital and because he was showing himself to be a Christian while he was in the hospital under those circumstances, it changed her life. She
Mhm.
became a Christian.
Mhm.
So we don't know all the time what God has in store for the future if we'll just let him work through the bad things in our lives as well as the good things.
And also keep in mind, and you can correct me on this if I'm wrong, but when it says that God is going to work things together for good, the good that God is concerned with, I believe, is spiritual good. Again, like we've
Yeah.
said, He is concerned with our uh, physical necessities and
Right.
such, but as we've talked about, the thing of utmost importance is our souls, spirits,
Yeah.
however you term
Well,
it.
and more than that, just in purpose of he works those things together for good according to his purpose,
Yes,
his definition of good,
yes.
not necessarily ours. So, we may lose that job and never be able to get a job that pays as well as that one ever again in the rest of our life. And when I said, well, see, it turned out bad, but it may have served God's purpose because it may have made us be more dependent on Him. We don't know all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what was going on here. Is God does Is their life get harder for a while? Yes.
Oh yeah.
But God is working. His ultimate plan is to destroy Pharaoh. If Pharaoh just right away says, "Oh, okay, they can go," then that's not God's plan. Because God's plan is to wipe Pharaoh out.
God's plan is to show his power and his
Yeah.
glory. And let's see how God responds to Moses. So, Moses' prayer in Exodus chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, that's the end of that chapter. So you don't really see God's response straight off. But if you go over to the next chapter,
Which is actually, I mean, it didn't have chapters originally. So this is like actually the
yes,
very next thing that the Bible
yes,
says.
that's true. Exodus chapter 6, verse 1. But the Lord said to Moses, Now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand he will send them out, and with a strong hand he will drive them out of his land.
Yeah. And we know that's the case. By the end, Pharaoh is begging them, get out of here. And they're like getting jewels and money and food. Everybody's giving them stuff. Here, take this and go. Get on out of here. And they get all sorts of jewelry and wealth and everything from.
And that is God's power. And he certainly knows the kind of people that we are, and he knows that we're going to have doubts and fears. And because of that, it is okay to question him. Just, how do I want to say this?
I don't know.
Don't let your questioning lead to losing your faith in God.
Well, and yeah, we're going to have times where we're frustrated and where we don't understand anything. We do need to remember that we can't see the final product, but it's okay to ask him, to tell him, to share our frustration. Lord, I don't know what you're doing. What are you doing
Yeah.
here? Help me to make it through to the other side of this thing and see it. The old story example is given of a tapestry where, on the back side of the tapestry, you can't see what it's supposed to look like. It just looks like a huge mess. But then if you turn that thing over, then you can see the beautifully patterned sewing that was done.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is sometimes. We're looking at our lives as we're going along, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, and we don't see the full picture of what it's going to be or anything. And that's what they were dealing with here. They were only seeing their momentary affliction. They're only seeing, hey, things have gotten worse. They don't realize that, hey, in a few more days, you're going to be free.
Yep.
I mean, if they had known at that point, if they said, okay, it's going to get harder for a few days, and then we're going to be free, would they have then said, oh, okay, we can do it?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. But Moses had told them, God's come, but they were just frustrated too. They weren't seeing the full picture. But we can put up with a lot of things if we just know that something better's coming.
So no matter how long it is, no matter what you're going through, just keep in mind that one way or another, God will get you out of it.
Yeah. And something better is coming as long as we stick with him.
And like we said earlier, that may be a spiritual escape. You may not get out of it physically.
Yeah. Stephen didn't.
Stephen didn't.
James didn't.
Yep.
Several. Eventually, Paul didn't. He got out a couple times, but then
many Christians have not made it out physically, but they made it out spiritually, and that is infinitely more important. Although, looking at the wrong side of the tapestry, sometimes that's hard for us to remember. Just try to keep it in mind.
All right.
I think that's all.
Yeah. Appreciate y'all being with us again, and we hope that you'll join us again as we continue looking at prayers in the Bible and other topics about prayer. And share this with your friends, neighbors. Like our channel. Go check out our Facebook pages and all those things too. I mean, we're here for you. And if you got a question or a comment, add it. We'll respond. We'll tell you how wrong you are. Maybe.
Well,
no,
he might. I'm nicer.
I'll tell you how wrong he was.
Well, that's highly likely. Yeah. All right.
But do comment if you want.
See ya.
Thanks. Bye.